Welcome to Best Path Forward, where we're here to talk about the professional development tools that we use to help ourselves find the best path forward in our own lives. Today, I'm joined by Eli. Eli, welcome to the podcast.
Dan, I'm honored to be here.
I'm honored to have you here. Do you know what a badass you are?
I don't know about that, but I guess if you want to tell me, I'll hear it.
In fact, I want to hear from your words. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so that's going to be a long journey, but my name is Eli Weikart. I hail from Northeast Ohio, so just a little bit south of Youngstown. Grew up in a pretty rural community, just kind of foothills of Appalachia. So I've lived in Columbus now for about 7 years. Currently, I'm a software sales executive for a real estate data company. It's been pretty cool because I've had a chance to get in rooms with people that I never thought I'd have access to over the past 3 or 4 years. And, I've been in sales for about 7 after having an education background. So we originally met through the gym and kind of some unity around personal challenges and affinity for that. So I think that's where we bonded.
I think that's an awesome background. So it sounds like you grew up in a pretty small town in Ohio, and then you went to education. What do you mean by education?
Yeah, so when you're from a small rural community, you pretty much have a pretty limited set of career visibility. So it's like your typical teacher, doctor, lawyer type setups. So my dad worked for Columbia Gas. A lot of friends were going into farming, going to work in the oil and gas pipeline, and that didn't really feel like my future. But my mom was a teacher, so I figured, all right, I'll pursue that. So I went to Kent State. And during that time, majored in early childhood education. So, as you grow up and you learn kind of what you want, where you fit in. Education was, enjoyable, especially early childhood. I think there's definitely a lack of male role models there and things like that. So, there's a level of, I wanted to stay in that to some degree, but, we were talking about your fraternity paddles out there and where I actually found some kind of my first niche in terms of feeling like I was excelling at something was I was a founding father and president of my fraternity. And through that, I kind of had opened to me this pathway of higher education and student personnel. So essentially working with future college leaders, adolescents, people kind of in young adulthood, especially taking on leadership roles. So kind of fell into that, and after maybe 6 months to a year out of undergraduate, teaching a little bit, being an instructional tutor, working in middle schools, I went back and went to grad school for what was a higher education degree. So essentially, the administrative and the college student personnel work. So I was at Bowling Green for a couple years. Did that, basically managed a dorm for a couple years at Cleveland State University. And, that world is, it's a little challenging. You're definitely working, upwards of 70, 90 hours a week. For the time I was making under $30,000 a year. So if you do the math,
Great ratio there.
Yep. So if you do the math, it's about $6 an hour with a master's degree. And you were dealing with like some pretty heavy stuff. You were dealing with anything from like, prank knocks on people's doors and stuff to like being the first responder to sexual assault or like suicidal, ideation or attempts and things like that. So burnout rate's really high there. Took kind of a parallel pathway into sales since then. So I always tell people it's a little bit of a non-traditional pathway into sales and particularly real estate. But the education backgrounds definitely still serve me in a lot of other capacities, especially teaching and mentoring roles.
I think that's awesome. That's one thing you and I have in common. I went through a higher education student affairs program myself at Ohio State University, and it's always fascinating. It's like you're these young kids, everything, and I was 22, 23 at the time, and they're like, "Dan, what do we do here?" I'm like, "Can you call your parents?" And I was like, "Oh no, we're supposed to give them a break from their parents and let them kind of grow and develop on their own." But I remember as well those calls. I remember one time we got a call. They were like, "Hey, we think one of your students is passed out on like the green about half a mile away from campus." So it was cool to see everyone kind of work together to get that student back home safely. So do you miss anything about higher education and student affairs?
I think there's a lot of I don't. Then that's probably not a popular
That's an
answer.
honest answer.
It's an honest answer. It's not a popular answer. I mean, I guess like I do miss a lot of components of working in early childhood. I think, being around kids and their wonder and their excitement and stuff. And I came home with stories every single day, and not necessarily the same types of stories you walk away with in kind of a cutthroat real estate and corporate sales environment. So the innocence of that, I miss it. Higher education, I don't miss it quite as much, because it was it was a little more challenging, and I don't think it was aligned with really kind of where I wanted to go. But I definitely miss kind of the innocence and the enjoyment of working with the little ones, for sure.
I think that's so cool that you said that word, aligned with where you want to go. It sounds like the first reason you got into education was something you just almost inherited. It's like, oh, my mom's an educator, so it's like, maybe that's what I want to do. You weren't really sure, but it was like the next step. And when you found out that wasn't the step for you anymore, you're like, I'm going to make another transition. I think that's huge and admirable. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks.
And so then you transitioned into software sales.
Yeah. So kind of, I think when you're I think there's maybe like a level of in transition, like you're trying to figure out, you don't want to like betray the things that you put in place over time. So for me, like there was a little bit of like a mental challenge of like leaving the world of education, which I think like happens with a lot of helping professions, right? So, I think a lot of people leave education because it's not necessarily a great field as, as a practitioner or like as an adult. And you kind of wrestle with like, am I betraying both the work I put into it, the people I serve, whatever it is. So kind of this intermediary jump into a textbook company called Pearson. So I was selling educational software. If you've ever taken like the digital online course learnings and tests and stuff like that, I was selling into teacher education programs out in the California state system. So kid from Youngstown, Ohio, never had been to California, and all of a sudden I'm going out there every 3 to 6 months, and really kind of felt like that was the first time I was kind of seeing the world. And then but publishing is publishing is definitely an industry in decline, and it has been for a while. So every year we're going through rounds of reorgs, layoffs, all this other stuff. So I made it through a few years. Finally, me and 80 other people in the entire Columbus office pretty much just get caught up in that. So at that point, I transitioned into payroll software called ADP, and that was like the first real like kind of sales gig. And that was kind of that first like real transition to like, oh, this is hard. Like this is gonna be hard. And all of a sudden you are like live and die by your metrics, by your performance, and it took not only a very long time to start to see success in that role, but 9 months in, COVID happens, and we're all home. We're kind of going through like that, and we're learning to grasp with it. Nobody's changing their at that time their payroll providers, because it's so many tax credits and things were kind of locked up into that. And after 3-ish years of kind of grinding away at that, I was just like, I don't think I can sell payroll. I mean, it was, at no point was that in kind of like the line of interest for me, but it transitioning into a deeper, more entrenched kind of sales role that I am now, that was an invaluable experience, because you basically, I don't know if I can say bad words on here, but it's
happened before.
You basically get your ass kicked for every single day for multiple years, and it really it's like you're just like fitness, like you're basically going through, you're putting in reps and reps and reps and reps, and all of a sudden one day you are just like, you have become this like other version of yourself in like professionally, very far removed from who you are as like, for me it was an educator. And the other thing I was thinking about your question on, do you miss it? You kind of miss the innocence you have as a person too, because in sales you become a killer. Yeah. And I never thought I'd become a killer, and here I am, right? So all of a sudden you are kind of, you wake up one day years later and you're like, man, I am in it, I'm proficient, but sometimes you're still wondering what happened to that version of you that was like, running around with like 8-year-olds and reading books and stuff.
Yeah. I think it's tough sometimes to look back and just kind of realize those kind of lost moments of innocence in general. I think we all have them. We all go through them. And I think that's kind of a byproduct of growing up in general. And so I think no matter where you landed, you probably would have had experiences like that. It's like, look back to simpler times, as people always say. You see little kids nowadays, they're like, oh, I can't wait to grow up. I was like, Just you wait. You
Yeah.
stop getting excited about getting mail because you're like, oh, either this is junk mail or some type of paper bill. I'm like, I
Yeah.
signed up for electronic bills a while ago. I'm not sure I'm getting paper. And you realize, oh, those are the things that are upsetting me right now. I'm
Yeah.
getting a paper bill
Yep.
from the electric company. And so I think it's important for you to kind of take stock and realize, like, you know what? There were some good times. You do miss some of the innocence. But as you said earlier, you put in those reps, those reps, those reps. And while you're a killer, you probably have your own way of killing different things. So you probably aren't killing the same way as someone that doesn't have the educational background. You probably can give grace when you don't need to, and you probably take opportunities of time to mentor others when you don't have to do that. And
Yeah.
so I think that's fantastic. Another thing you mentioned is that we met in the gym. Do you work out at all?
I do. I've been, off and on working out for, better part of, let's say I'm 34 now. So, age 14, so probably 20 years.
20 years.
With a couple of, like you fall off the wagon once in college, you fall off in your mid 20s. I'm sure we'll get to that because we talked about transformations and stuff like that. But, my focus, and has been for pretty much since COVID was kind of on like the hybrid athlete type mentality. So, I follow a lot of that, content, Nick Bear, and these people who are literally trying to balance out like their strength and so both like top end strength and, general, like not quite bodybuilding, but like weightlifting goals, balancing that with speed, endurance, marathons, half marathons, triathlons, stuff like that. So that's been that's kind of been my area of focus, especially in the fitness space for probably the past 5 years or so.
So you said half marathons, that's not enough. Full marathons, still not enough. Triathlons too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So I want to hear about one of them. Your choice. Half marathon, marathon, triathlons, all of them.
Yeah. I kind of did in the opposite order. I started with triathlons. I at the time was dating somebody who had been training for one, and I was like, she can do this. I think I can do this, right?
All right.
And so I start to I guess real quick context was I played football growing up, and I learned how to sprint, run, work out, do some general general fitness stuff, kind of some relative eating, all of that stuff from the age of 14 through, 18 or whatever. I go off to college, have a very mild obsession with bodybuilding, and this is pre like influencer era. It's Flex magazine, it's all this other stuff.
Going to the store and reading, like, nice, let's go.
Yeah, if you're getting the new Flex magazine in Walmart every single month and stuff like that. So so I go through that, and then back half of college, like a lot of young adult, I think men definitely do, or young adults do, is like all of a sudden one day you get bogged down with everything, and suddenly you set foot in the gym for the last time for 3 years or whatever, right? And so I had kind of fallen off my fitness bandwagon from probably the age of about 20 until 26 actually. So there's probably a good 6 years or so of really no focus on fitness in there. And then I reconnected with it briefly for about a year and a half when I was in Cleveland. And all of a sudden I'm at 26 and I'm starting to see some top end strength that I had never seen before. I'm suddenly squatting 3 plates. I'm benching 3 plates. I'm like, where's this, like these are things that, I thought that, I wasn't sure how far back I was going to be from that when I was 18, 19. And then, it's got a good 18 months out of that. And then moved down here, fall off the wagon, and all of a sudden I ballooned. I put on a lot of weight, so I was, not massive, but I'm 183 right now, and I was 210 probably.
30 pounds is not a small amount, so you must have been a little bit okay.
Yeah, so and with that is my first sales gig, and just working 70 hours a week, and you're very sedentary. You're a couple glasses of whiskey every single night, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden that kind of gets past your control, and I think I was associating with people I was dating at the time was not necessarily maybe aligned with that either. And so as I decided that I was going to transition into maybe a more appropriate version of myself based on fitness and how I kind of saw myself, that became kind of a focal point, because I knew somebody who was doing this. I was like, I can do this. So all of a sudden it's like a little bit of walk running, a little bit of biking, a little bit of swimming, and I start to see a pathway here, and then COVID happens, and all of a sudden I have to wait kind of an undisclosed amount of time to complete my first triathlon. So So in the COVID stretch, I just started to, go down this path of every single day just kind of swinging the hammer, and all of a sudden it's like runs are getting a little bit longer, bikes are getting a little bit longer. So my first, I finally, after a year and a half of kind of doing this, finally do my first triathlon. It wasn't very good. My next triathlon wasn't very good. My third. So I over the span of maybe 2.5 years, I did about 5 triathlons. Mostly
Olympic triathlons in 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Mostly,
all right.
Mostly Olympic distance, which is about I think it's a 1.5K swim, so it's just under a mile swim, 25-mile bike, and then 10K, so 6.2-mile run, and so this was 2021, and I just put something up on Instagram. I think you probably saw it, but most of them, I was getting like last or next to last place, and just kind of kept going. I thought maybe I'll get better, and I never quite did. But I went from next to last place in all of these local triathlons to really kind of finding a little bit more of my groove in the running sports, which is really weird because I think everybody hates running, myself included. After a couple years of switching over to and building up strength and speed in the half marathon distance, I just ran the Las Vegas half marathon a couple months ago, and I think I finished in the top 5%. So it's one of the largest half marathons in the nation, and I actually finished in the top 5% of the whole field.
The whole field? Let's go.
So yeah, so that was so I think to be able to kind of see just tangibly all right, well, I came from literally next to last place in all of these very local triathlons, very grassroots events and stuff, and the ups and downs that go along with that. And all of a sudden, it's top 5%, in one of the largest half marathons in the nation was definitely, I think, maybe a pretty self-affirming, hard piece of evidence that I can kind of carry with me. And then I just ran Cap City, which is the Columbus half marathon, last weekend, and knocked another 2 minutes off of that time. So, now I'm kind of setting my sights ahead to a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. In terms of the hybrid athlete goals and stuff, which I think you would appreciate. So Saturday was my Columbus half, which was, it was a 1:41:58, which is about a 7:47 mile.
Wait, so you ran a half marathon in 1 hour and 41 minutes?
Mm-hmm, something like that, yeah.
Something like that. That's absurdly fast.
Yeah, so that was a 7:47 mile time. And then 48 hours later, I was still able to hit 3:15, so 3 plates on the bench, and just been trying to continue to
Dude, hold on. My brain is processing, because everyone knows runners aren't supposed to be able to lift, and everyone knows that people that lift super heavy things aren't supposed to run. And yet you are proving that that's not the case. Is that what hybrid athletes do? Just go out there and defy expectations, break the mold like that?
Yeah, I think it's just that's hybrid, right? That's how you define it. You're literally doing strength and speed, because you never it's almost, you never quite fit into one box. And I think you are definitely kind of shedding what maybe a typical runner looks like, or even a typical fast runner looks like too.
Yeah.
So kind of heading in those directions. I mean, I think maybe we talked about this too, and I can get into this later, but my 1,000-pound bench squat deadlift total and sub-4-hour marathon in the same week was definitely probably the one of my bigger pursuits of last year. So yeah, you're definitely trying to merge a couple different disciplines all at once, but kind of hold strength, hold speed, make incremental improvements. But it's definitely an undertaking for sure.
I like what you said there, and this will be the last time I'm bugging, then we can move on, I promise. Incremental progress. And so you were pretty realistic with your goals. You had these high expectations, but even in the first triathlon, when you finished, you said last or second to last, and then the second triathlon, you finished second to last. It's all right. At that point, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it to see how much better you can do. I assume you probably did better in the second triathlon than you did the first one, just you personally.
I would need to go back and look. I mean,
for the purpose of the story, I hope it's yes. Or else.
Yeah. No, I mean, they were. I mean, they were. I definitely was faster by the last triathlon than I was, at the first.
I think that's awesome. And so, just incremental progress is what kept you going. And look at you now. You're finishing the top 5% in Vegas. You just did a 1:41 in Cap City. And then the next day, you're like, you know what? Let me just bench 3:15. Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic. And I think it's a great background. That's why I say you're one of the most interesting and driven and just great people I've ever met in my life.
Appreciate you.
So, Eli, you had important homework before coming to this. Mm-hmm. You were tasked with picking a date. And that's for the Bike Brain entry reading. Do you remember what date you picked?
December 8th of 2024.
Yeah, and what was my response to you?
I don't do bike brains on Sundays.
That's right.
Sunday.
I'm a lazy piece of crap who does not do bike brains on Sunday. And so Eli was gracious enough to go with the next day, which was 12/9/2024.
Mm-hmm.
So going with the original chosen date, what was so special about December 8th, 2024?
Yeah, that was the sub-4-hour marathon that I PR'd with the stomach flu down in San Antonio. So that was, it's definitely a memory that I think I'm going to hold on to for a while.
All right, see, I want to move on to the bike brain, but you say things like that have me immediately intrigued. You did a marathon with the stomach flu.
Mm-hmm.
I don't... Break it down for us commoners that are not on the deity level of runners like you. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, sorry if it gets a little graphic for a second, but yeah, so if usually your body does all kinds of things. There's a lot of distress that goes on when you're running. So, runners are in and out of the bathroom quite a lot, but I think, to compound it, if you see signs of trouble in the days leading up to it, it's usually like not going to be a very good sign. Compounding that with the fact that you have to carbo load. So usually you're trying to cram anywhere from 500 to 700 grams of carbohydrates a day in the 2 or 3 days kind of leading up to a marathon. So, when I was about to fly out to San Antonio on, I think it was Friday night. So that would have been December 6th to go down, see my brother, his girlfriend who lived down there. Maybe 2 days before that. So so the marathon's on Sunday. On Wednesday, I started, having a little bit of a GI distress, and I was like, well, whatever. It's, one off one day. And then like the next day it gets a little worse. The next day it gets a little worse. And, by Saturday, so day before the marathon, it is like bathroom every hour and a half. Right. So the morning of this marathon, and, you're already making it worse because you're like, this is happening, but I have to get nutrition. I have to get carbohydrates. So you're just like Coca-Cola, gummy bears, like things that aren't
sugar,
Yeah, sugar, like all this other stuff. And then, you're having like big pasta dinner the night before and stuff. So yeah, I think like the morning of, I was like in the bathroom probably 4 times before I left for the race at 6 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
So then you're all of a sudden another couple bathroom trips while you're actually there, and now you're in the portage on lines and stuff like that. And if you've ever run any type of race, if you get there early enough, there's no lines, and all of a sudden it goes from no line very quickly to like you are gonna be in like a 45-minute wait.
Yeah.
Like in the blink of an eye. So all of a sudden, we're on bathroom trip number 6, and I am way far back in this portage on line, and they're singing the national anthem, and it's about to start, and I'm like, all right, and like so much. This was my big goal I set was that my hybrid athlete goal of 1,000-pound bench squat deadlift total, and then sometime later that week I'd also run my first ever in my life sub 6 minute mile at the age of 34. So so much hinged in my mind on like achieving this this time. And everything's going wrong. So all of a sudden, it's like they're singing the national anthem. I'm still in line. They send out corral A. I'm still in line. I'm in corral D. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there. I'm waiting. I find corral B, corral C, corral D, where I was supposed to be, is gone, and there's still 5 people ahead of me in line. So finally, I get in there, and we're 6 corrals down, and all of a sudden, I am like, I go in there. I'm like, well, I don't. This is already shaping up to be not a very good situation. So as I'm getting ready to exit, I realize there's no toilet paper at all in this porta john. And unfortunately, a little graphic, but as I leave, I take one step, and I'm like, all right, this is just how it's gonna be. So, I stand up, and I take one step out, and dude, it was like I have never chafed. I've never been chafing so bad in my entire life. So all of a sudden, it's like every step is just like I'm like my skin is just on fire, and I'm like, I have to go run 26.2 miles.
You didn't even start the race at this point.
I didn't even start the race. It was just literally walking to the finish line was excruciating. Honestly, it was. So, I start this race, and my skin is on fire. I'm at that point probably dehydrated. I have the stomach flu. I'm just like, all right. So I start going about half mile in. I'm looking, that particular pace had to be like a sub 9 minute roughly. And it's like, I'm on a I'm starting 6 corrals behind where I'm supposed to. I have to run. You have to run around literally thousands of people in the streets, zig and zag and all this other stuff. And now I'm posting like a 10-minute pace or a 10:30 pace. And so all of a sudden I am now like, half mile into this race and I'm mentally just like defeated. I'm like, this is over. Like, oh, this is already over. This thing is not going to happen at all. And, it's crazy. I was like, what if I just quit? Like, what if I literally just stepped off this course half mile in, all these months of training, like like toiling alone in the dark, all this other stuff what if I just quit? And then I was like, well, maybe this pain that I'm in will start to subside. Maybe it'll numb up. And, fortunately it did over time. And, I'm mile 2, 3 and mile 4. And suddenly the pain and the chafing is gone, but all of a sudden my stomach is cramping up again by that point. So, and I'm still running 2 minutes behind pace. So mile 6, I'm like, I can't take this anymore. So we're at a military, at this point we run through Fort Sam Houston about 6 miles in. We're running through a military base, which is just a lot of concrete, a lot of people watching and nowhere to hide, basically.
You're on full display.
Yeah, I'm on full display. I'm like, this is a really bad place to basically like shit your pants. So I keep going and I find the first, I'm like, all right, I can't take this anymore. So I find a bathroom and we are like literally just another line. So finally get in there, purging, and I'm like, this is the worst case scenario. Everything, months of preparation, my entire body is just failing me. Like this entire goal is basically out the window. So I get out there, I clocked like a 13-minute, 40-second mile or something like that, which again, I had to be sub 9-minute pace. And I already am now like already 15 minutes behind pace at, 6 minutes, 6 miles in. So I think to myself, well, maybe I default to B goal, which is like, I just got to finish it and I just chip away. And, there's another voice in the back of my head that says, well, maybe you don't have to make this all up now. Like this is a marathon. You got 20 miles to go. Maybe you can just chip away. So all of a sudden then it's like, all right, well, let's try that. Let's just chip away. So after that 13-minute mile, then it was like, all right, well, 8:30 mile, 8:30, 8:15, 8:40, 8:20. I'm like, okay.
So all of a sudden, in the right direction.
Starting to trend right back. So I get to my halfway point, the half marathon, which is I get this after everything that happened. I hit the halfway point at a 2:01, and I'm like, well, man, I guess this is on now. I only need to run a 1:59. I only need to run 2 minutes faster than I just did, so I could assuming I don't blow up. So mile after that, we're in the woods.
Wait, so time out, hold on. You hit the half marathon mark at 2 hours after all that to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so somehow survived that, and I'm like, all right, I guess it's game on at this point. I have half of this to prove myself right in what I can do. So all of a sudden it spits us out into the woods. In the next 7 miles, I just clawed my way back, like mile over mile over mile. It's like I'm hitting every pace. I'm banking time, and all of a sudden I get to a point where like I think this might actually happen. So 20 miles in, you get 6 miles to go, and we get spit out. We get out of the woods, 23 miles, and all of a sudden it's like, dude, like that's where everybody starts to hurt, right? Like my legs are breaking down. Like I'm starting to run out of energy. I'm just like, I can't stop. Like just everything I just did. Like this is like I can't stop.
No.
Everything I just fought through to get to this point. To like now I'm in striking distance of this goal. I think to just give up right now would be would be kind of a travesty because you're tired. Like what? So like I dug so deep, and I at mile 24, 25, I see my brother and his girlfriend, and they're running alongside me, and you get 26, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy hell, I'm gonna get like a 3:55, which is I think there's a few big jumps I'm gonna make here in the future, but all of a sudden I crossed the finish line at like 3:55, and I'm like, I cannot believe that this just happened. And I think to myself, like, man, I really ran that with heart.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it's like the tears are like about to start coming, and I was like, okay, hold on. So I kind of swallow it and I make it through. But like, yeah, so that was there's significant to that December 9th date, December 8th. But yeah, that was definitely one of the, from like a fitness perspective, one of the things that I have done now that I'm like, nothing will ever, I think, trump this. And my 2 half marathons after that, I've just been like, this is literally nothing compared to what I did like in this event, kind of leading up to it.
You did a full marathon when you didn't have the proper storage in your body, like as far as the carb loading and everything. Mm-hmm. Your body was severely dehydrated. And you went out there, and even as you were doing it, you were like, I need to quit because I just can't physically do this.
I thought the goal was just the goal was gone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that I could have walked it, but I'm like, I thought the goal was gone. And my first thought was like, well, I'm not gonna hit my goal. I'm just gonna quit.
Yeah. So what made you reframe from wanting to hit your goal to just actually finishing it? Because even when you didn't seem like you were going to hit your goal, you hadn't hit that half marathon point yet. So why did you keep going?
Dude, I mean, your head goes to some pretty bad places like when you're there, right? So it's like whatever, you know, like when you're in the gym or when you're on a long run or whatever it is, sometimes you have to dig really deep. And honestly, like I don't think my head was really there. Yeah, I don't think it was this. I don't think there was like a positive reframing or anything like that. It was kind of divine. I think it might have been, you know, it might have been God or something like really kind of giving me like, hey, you think of it this way. And it was just like a little piece of light, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, and it's just a thought. It's not like, well, maybe I can. It's like, well, I don't have to make this all up right now. Not even I'm gonna like salvage this, but like I don't have to make it all up right now. So like, let's just see.
Let's just see.
Yeah, I think there was some curiosity there of like, well, all right, well, I can't control the first 6 months. I can't control what's happened up to this point. Like, you know, but there's so much more to go, and it's like, you know, there's kind of that, it's a marathon, not a sprint moniker, but that was literally like what it was. It was literally, I still had almost a full marathon to go. So
Yeah. Dude, I think that's incredible. I'm sorry I don't have a 12/8/2024. As you were out running on a dehydrated body, I was just having a nice relaxing Sunday.
I think 12/9 is a good enough date.
All right, sir. So what I'll have you do is I'll have you kind of read over the bike brain, and I'll kind of explain to everyone what a bike brain is. Is that cool?
Yep.
All right, so go ahead. So bike brains are essentially how I process my mental thoughts. I try to do them 5 to 6 days a week. And as you heard Eli say, usually not the 7th day of the week, Sunday, because apparently I'm a lazy bum. They're usually broken down into one of 3 categories. That's mind, body, spirit. Mind is all about controlling the mental energy allocation, imagining your different areas of your life as rooms. Where are you spending the most time in your rooms? Is it the workout room, the work room, the family room, friends room, relationship room? Where are you allocating that mental energy toward? The next is body. Body is a hybrid machine. It's a holistic approach of how you take care of your body. And it's beyond calories in, calories out. It's watching how much sleep you're getting, how you handle stress levels, anxieties, even the environment you surround your body with. And the last is spirit. And spirit is diving in to figure out your code of conduct of how you want to conduct yourself around the world and in the world. And it's also reaching out to others with the understanding that you can't do this thing alone. And then there are special entries, known as the Eno-Sala entries. And Eno-Sala entries touch on all 3 of those. So Eli, did you have a chance to read that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what I'll do is I will go to read it for everyone, and then we can talk about it. So once again, this is 12/9/2024, and this is an Eno-Sala entry, and it's called Take Stock. Take full account of what excellencies you possess, and in gratitude, remember how you would hanker after them if you had them not. Marcus Aurelius. Part of what I've learned throughout this journey is that while focusing on the next thing you want to accomplish, failing to show gratitude for the things you presently possess could put what you aim to build at risk. Take stock of not only what you have, do one for how you develop the tools to allocate mental energy to the rooms you choose while letting go of undesired things or others' goals. For how you made your body capable of not only transforming through exercise, but also able to power through life's stressors with high vigor. For how you've coded your spirit to act in accord with the person you want to be. Then think about the utter gut punch it will be if just one of those things were missing. If you don't take stock of what you have, or of why you molded yourself that way, it will start to slip away. If it does, anything that you do, or anything that you build, won't be sustainable, because while you might go through the actions of building it, there will be no passion to see it through. So Eli, what hits me hard about that is that a lot of people, myself included, take things for granted. And as soon as you start taking things for granted, being like, oh, I've had this workout progress, you start letting the priority of that thing go to the back of your head. And once it's there, you find it, 1, harder to kind of keep track of that thing. And number 2, you find yourself doing that thing less often. And so one of my favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I think once you remember the why behind your journey, why did I start doing this? As long as you remember the why of why you're doing something, it'll be very hard for things to slip away. So just like relationship building, it's not something I would know like in a romantic sense because I've been eternally single. But even like in friendships, if you say like, "Oh, that's my best friend," but you haven't talked to them in like a month or a year, it's like, well, are you really putting the time and effort into that? You're taking that for granted and you're letting it slip away. So I think no matter what you're doing in life, if it's important to you, you have to keep it at a high priority. Refusing to put it at a high priority means it's not important to you. If it's not important to you, it's not going to be sustainable for the long haul. What do you think of that bike brain entry?
So there's a lot to unpack there, and a lot that I think resonates with me. I mean, like I just from 2 minutes ago that lessons you take away from like fitness, and especially like I think one of the reasons that doing endurance events is really powerful is because it does. I think there was a line in there around like what your physical fitness teaches you in avenues in life outside of just there. So. My first reaction to the quote itself was, kind of in line with like how these things, when you put yourself in positions of challenge, willingly, like you are in kind of this headspace where like you're choosing suffering so you can respond to it a little bit differently later. Like that was like a sufferfest for me, and it was literally like. It was something that like I hadn't planned. I think part of it was like, you're mentally suffering because you're watching your goal slip away and like you're physically suffering. So basically like what happens, throughout that training is like, it starts to build on like how you're going to respond to that in other avenues. So, we've talked about how like, the month leading up to that marathon, like I just didn't sleep for like it's like that's not a great way to build your training, like hit your goals and stuff like that. But how do you respond to it? And like, how do you remain, I think there's another point on there around consistency. So like what is, like what are you doing consistently, holding it a priority, so you're doing it over and over again. And I think like the suffering you choose is actually the stuff that trickles into how you interpret some of the other things that you don't choose. So like, we talked a little bit about this, I think, but like back in January, like my mom had a stroke. So now like we're kind of dealing with that as a family. And, like my brother, I have to go down to Texas in a couple weeks because like they can't take care of my brother and he's having back surgeries. So like I'm on this, right? So like I'm kind of in this point now where like there's a larger sense of like, I'm kind of in the suffering with like some of the more significant things going on in my family in this chapter. And if you weren't doing, like if you weren't putting yourself like willing to these situations and even just like the keep going, I think kind of mentality that's the kind of thing that those types of things talk through. Maybe we can circle back to this, but the way that kicks off too is I think a lot about how you would go about achieving the things that you maybe have now, but like if you didn't have them, or even like the way you visual, like how you would go about achieving the things that you feel like are important to you. And I think part of that also comes like how you visualize yourself. And if you see yourself as like a marathon runner, if you see yourself as a triathlete, if you see yourself as a hybrid athlete, successful salesperson, all around cool dude, whatever it is, interesting person, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who does like epic things. If you see yourself that way, I guess like what are the behaviors that really get you there? And honestly, like when I first read that, the first thing that really jumped out to me was like, what systems are you putting in place to essentially make that the vision of you that's like really far away but attainable? Like what kind of things do you have to do now between now and then for maybe years to really get to that point?
Yeah. First, how's your mom doing?
So thank you for asking. She is not great, but could be worse. So essentially, with it was a really minor stroke. So like we're very fortunate that like physical facilities, all this other stuff. It honestly, from like a physical standpoint, hasn't really impacted her a lot. However, what comes with that is what that has kind of turned into is actually like crippling anxiety, right? So as somebody who's dealt with that on and off for the last 3 years and kind of overcome it, it's resurfacing a lot for me now too. So like all of a sudden now the challenges that we didn't expect that came along with that are actually I think anybody who's had like a heart attack, stroke, whatever it is actually like now the anxiety of like what your body, like how your body might respond or how it's going to be with things. So, part of it's like I'm facing a lot of my own demons now all over again. And, having like a really relatively stable family growing up, this is the first time that I've now had to really kind of like, take a lead in some things with the family as well. And so that's why I'm saying, like, it's, it's kind of a sufferfest. I'm very fortunate because I still have my health. I still have, like, my way of life and stuff like that. But, now kind of like trying to walk through this together, you really have to, think everything in like kind of a small bite-sized chunk to kind of get through it.
I think taking a step by step is one, and a great approach that you have to take. And two, I don't want you to discount yourself and your own abilities. I think one of the things that the bike brain mentioned, and it's so cool that it happened the day after your marathon, is that you're coding yourself, your code of conduct, your spirit and everything. It's like, I'm not the person I want to be yet. So what are they doing? How can I mold myself to be more like that? I'm not the person there yet, but I can be. And so what that test did for you in December 8th, 2024 was to show, like, even when my body is not properly fueled, I can still go out there and prove it to myself. Because you probably thought to yourself, you know what, there's probably been a lot of runners that I respect that have gone out and have not been at the quote unquote physical peak. And they've still been able to push through it. And it built grit, built determination, built resilience in you. You're going to take those same lessons and you're going to help your mother kind of recover more. And then your brother too in Texas when he has his back surgery. So it's like, you've embraced the suck. You've said, you know what, suck, let's go out and have a dance. Mm-hmm. You've done that so often in your life. It's like, this is just another opportunity to prove to yourself that you have what it takes. Mm-hmm. And so I am so sorry to hear about your family. I know these are tough times, but they are very lucky to have you as a son and your brother to have you as a brother, because I think you're going to go there, put those same principles that you have, kind of refine your code of conduct and prove it to them that, like, you know what, this sucks, but we're going to get through it together. Mm-hmm. And so that's fantastic, man. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. You walk through it together, right? I think that, like, the physical piece is there's so much there, and it just builds, like, strength of spirit a little bit, as cheesy as that sounds. But there's a level of, like, as you're like, I'm going to do this because, other people in my life can't, and I can. So,
yeah.
So, like, if I can, I shall.
You're stepping up to save the day. I think that's fantastic. Eli, thank you very much for kind of indulging my bike brain and just making it even more leveled up by just relaying your own kind of family story and how it impacted you. That means a lot to me. But once again, enough about me. What personal development tool have you prepared to share with us today?
Yeah. So, I think I mentioned this when I was walking in here, but so I work for a data company, and, for better or for worse, that will seep into your, it kind of seeps into your DNA. And from my personal development standpoint, the first thing that I really thought of, and I think it kind of goes with your bike brain too, around how would you go about pursuing what you see yourself as? And, like, visualization is obviously something, right? So seeing who you think you can be, even when you're far away from that, and knowing you're taking the right steps. So for me, like, I think my personal development tool is really focused on using data and goal setting, which, it's actually a good old-fashioned Microsoft, or it's a good oldfashioned Google Sheets spreadsheet.
Google Sheets are awesome.
Google Sheets are awesome.
They're free, unlike Microsoft Excel.
Yep, they are. So yeah. I have it downloaded on my laptop. I have it on my phone. So you kind of that is kind of like the pathway, and I have used that to input data on myself that is a lot, like, it allows me to have an honest conversation with myself on if I am walking in the right path towards where I want to go. So specifically, my goals are around health, wealth, and self. So usually, well, not usually, for the last 7 years, I have been very aggressive and specific on goal setting, and they've been very process-oriented and quantifiable goals. So for instance, so the short answer to that is really goal setting, and then using just like good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet to track it, which is the least sexy thing I think anybody probably can come on here and talk about. But I've become obsessed with it, because it's like it's like watching your character level up, like on a video game, right? You're literally seeing yourself hitting these certain milestones. So when I set big picture goals, it's like, all right, who do I see myself as? And the health, wealth, self thing is like easy to kind of remember. And so for health, it's like it's not, you sit down with people on New Year's Eve and the question is like, well, what's your resolution? What's your resolution for the year? And usually it's like, I want to work out more.
Yep.
So what does that mean? Like, well, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what happens if you don't 1 week? It's like, do you make up for it? It's like, well, I'm going to work out 3 days a week. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And
that sounds good.
then typically what happens is like that happens for about 1 week and then you forget about it and then all of a sudden there it is and you're making the same thing and you're on this treadmill of being the same kind of every single year. So, I instead of setting it that way, I decided like, okay, what does that look like? And it's 240 workouts throughout the year. So what does that look like? All right, well that's 20 a month. Okay, that's easy. Or at least that's easy to digest and understand.
Yeah.
So that is, 4-week month, that's 5 a week or whatever it is, right? So that's, it can be a little more aggressive. So, okay, what if, am I going to work out 5 days a week? Like, do I need to adjust that to 225, whatever? So, but that's a process-oriented goal, Dan. So it's basically, I'm not like, I'm going to work out more. It's like, how am I going to look so different between workout 1 and workout 240?
Yes.
So that's the process right there. It's not, I'm not going to get in shape. Like that might be the end result, but like literally it's what's the process. So, what I've done for the last, I started doing this in about 2017. I started, pretty much the last day of every single month. I have an appointment with myself that last morning of the month. And usually around like, 9, 10 a.m. I take stock of, this previous month and, sample goals would be like, health, wealth, self. So health is 240 workouts. So that's 20 a month. So on the last day of the month, did I do 20 workouts? So I have, some free app I downloaded in which I log my sets and it highlights which days I was there. So, all right, great. So I had 18. So that means I need to have 22 next month or, now I have to do 20.5, for the other months. Or conversely, I did 25 workouts. Great. So now I only have to average 19 a month for the last 11 months of the year, right? So it's not sexy, but basically like that's a way to kind of keep yourself on track. And if you are literally upholding this appointment with yourself at the end of every single month, it's a way to do it. So health goals, that's what it's been like for a very long time. Lately it's shifted a little bit, which we can talk about, but wealth is like, I have like being in sales, you do have some influence over your earnings. So, there have been, hey, I'm going to make XYZ in gross commissions and, but really consistently it's like my net worth, I want my net worth to be this. So, what do I have to get it to? And then, like those behaviors kind of trickle down. And then self it's been a variety of things. It's been service hours on the year. So it's been like, hey, I want to volunteer for 50 hours this year. I want to donate, $5,000 to charities this year. I want to, an easy quantifiable one is like, I want to read 20 books this year, 24 books. So that's 2 a month, right? So all of those things have basically been very quantifiable. For the last 7 years, I literally have spreadsheets, and just in 2 tabs, and it's just, one is like kind of all the net worth statements and some of this other stuff. And then I have all that graphed and I can kind of track it. But then, the other one is like just tab for 2017, like what were my goals, like a little bit of commentary on there and stuff. And then, now after having that so ingrained, it's like, all right, well, having another year of 240 workouts is like, it gets a little redundant after a while, right? So that is so ingrained in me. I trust myself to show up. Like you basically build yourself an ability to show up for yourself by doing that. And then you check in at the end of the day. And once you have done that over so many years, it's so well ingrained in you that like, all right, well, for the sake of like, where's that next thing? Now my goals have become a little bit more creative. So lately it's been like, set a PR, set multiple PRs, do this epic race, do something, physically challenging. So I have a lot of like, I'm starting to call them side quests now. So side quests are now like, for instance, one is like, so I turned 35 here in 4 or 5 weeks. So on May 31st. So the idea is to run 35 miles on my 35th birthday, right? That's like a side quest that I want to do that I think is like really consistent with those goals. It doesn't really fit in any one bucket, but I think it's like that falls into the like do something epic kind of.
Do something epic
is literally one of my goals, right? So, with that, that's one of them. I just signed up for the Lisbon, Portugal full marathon here in October.
The what's where?
Lisbon, Portugal's full marathon. So I'm going to be, going out and doing that and trying to, do a massive PR for my marathon time while I'm out there as well.
Wait, so time out. Is this a person or a location?
Lisbon, Portugal.
I'm not well traveled or cultured at all.
Yeah,
It's in Portugal.
Yeah, Portugal.
Okay, I
Country.
thought it was
Yeah,
like a
Lisbon.
family that's
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
sponsoring
so
it.
Lisbon, the country, or
Oh.
Lisbon, the city, and in Portugal, the country. They do a marathon that is up and down the coast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's another one of those. That's another one of those like just kind of epic things that I'm trying to kind of work into the goal set. But yeah, I mean, literally, it's not sexy, but personal development is literally to help you with vision. Is like, all right, well, I'm gonna have a system in place, and the system is gonna be a very basic spreadsheet in which I hold myself accountable at the end of every single month to do this. This year, one more quick aside. I'm really focused on getting and staying lean. Like you have like for being 40, like you're shredded. Like I absolutely like admire that, aspire to be it. I want to get to a point where I'm like, oh dude, you can see the abs, like everything looks good, right? Because sometimes I'm like, oh man, like I don't look like somebody who runs like a 141 half marathon or whatever, right? So getting and staying lean is a big one. So it's like, all right, well, what does that look like? All right, 15% body fat or less. So what does that look like? So I built another system where literally between MyFitnessPal, and it's like the self-audit is another kind of component of that. So data and self-audit. Self-audit is, all right, I'm tracking my calories in and calories out on every day except for Saturday. And on Saturday, I have all the wine, all the Oreos, all the this, all the that, and all of a sudden it's like 6 months later, I haven't seen a difference, right?
So I wonder why.
So the self-audit is like, all right, well, when it's tough, like 7 days a week, like we are tracking that, and we have it, and now we have all of that. So right now it's like I don't do a lot of stuff like weekly check-ins, but this one is. So every Tuesday, so after this, I'm gonna go, and it's like, all right, what was my average daily calories, like for the trailing 7 days? What was my average body weight for the trailing 7 days? What was my step count? What were my hours running and my hours lifting? And then how many days this week did I drink? And I look at that and use that to be able to determine, like, am I in maintenance? Am I in bulk? Am I in cut? And like, where is this going to get me in terms of like relative to where I'm looking to be?
I think that's fantastic. I just have one disagreement with your whole plan so far. It's actually not part of your plan. It's something that you keep saying about data and self-development and all this. You're like, it's not sexy. I find it to be the sexiest thing ever for someone to be like, you know what? This is what I want to do. I'm going to make a plan to get there. And I'm going to see it through. I think that's the sexiest thing in the world. Why wouldn't it be?
Because it's slow, and it's slow, right? Like it's also like, I mean, you're looking in the mirror. It's hard to. It can not feel sexy because it's like it's usually data is the best way to have a hard conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
Being in sales is like, hey, did I make all the calls? Like, did I make all the dials that I was supposed to today, or did I not? Did I hit my number? Did I not? Did I hit my meeting goal? Did I not? So that's painful for a lot of people. And then, like it's not this big groundbreaking thing. It doesn't go viral on, maybe this will go viral, but it doesn't go viral on TikTok or whatever it is. It's literally using a free Excel spreadsheet, which I think a lot of people are not akin to. And it also requires like years of checking in with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about viral is that it's viral for a moment. What you're doing is for a lifetime. What you're doing, what you're trying to tell people, the tools that you're using, that's for a lifetime. And I think that's invaluable. Like, it's a flash in the pan. It's like motivation versus someone that has it coded in their spirit. It's like motivation is lighter fluid. It's like, it's great for a great, shiny, big burst. But if you have that hot, cold, burning sensation, I'll take that all over instead of just a flash in the pan.
Yep.
And so, no, it might not be the quote unquote sexiest. I disagree, but you're the creator of this tool. So we'll let you call it however you want. But it's something that's cold, nice, slow burning thing that's going to last a long time. You just have to stoke it every so often to keep it nice and going, fresh air in there. And I think what you have so far is great.
Nice.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap what you said, your big thing is using, and so I like naming these things. So this is what I called yours. Using data to visualize your future you. How does that sound?
I love it.
All right. It's yours. So I guess you can trademark it. I hope I get a cut.
Yeah, do it.
I do?
Do it.
All right. And so in that I have 3 overarching categories, and that's health, wealth, and self. And so your big first step is to find out categories that are important to the person. For you, it's health, wealth, and self. And the second big thing is set up an appointment with yourself. So you do an appointment with the last day of each month to say, hey, did I hit the goals I set out to do for this month? You don't do it at the end of the year, because by then it's like, oh, the whole year is gone. So let me check into myself every month to see if I'm doing, use the example of working out. Oh, I hit 19 workouts this month. I need to bump it up by 2 for next month. So you're staying on track. You're not discouraged because you're not looking at such a narrow scope, but like a day by day. You're giving yourself a month to assess where you are and then kind of recalibrate your approach to it. Does that sound right? All right. And then the next step is incorporate side quests that prevent things from getting stale. I think that's fantastic. You're kind of gamifying your life a little bit. You're like, oh, let's have some fun with these goals and projects and everything. And then the final thing that you have for the, as I call it, the using data to visualize your future you is a self-audit. Now, this is a wild card here because while you're not necessarily adjusting on a week-by-week basis, you're kind of checking in with yourself. So what is the point of the self-audit?
So I mean, like, and I think I mentioned this before we started recording, but I think it's again looking in the mirror of like, all right, well, am I doing the things that are consistent with me, or am I turning a blind eye? So like, for instance, like, you know, I spent a lot of time where, hey, Saturdays don't count on MyFitnessPal, but that is the day where like the most wine, the most Oreos, the most whatever.
Everything.
Another one, I'm in sales, I'm in real estate. So there's a lot of happy hours, there's a lot of after hours work, there's a lot of things. And then usually there's a day or two where like, I just need to decompress. There's usually a day of like, you know, social friends, whatever. And, you know, like those. So when, you know, I have conversations with people around fitness and stuff, I usually say, like, oh, I'm not a big drinker, right? But, you know, one of my self-audit things I started adding was like, how many days a week am I drinking? And like, dude, it's like 4 nights a week. And all of a sudden, you know, like without the self-audit, it's like, oh, like even,
like, that's why.
Even like with all of these established systems in place, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even adhering. Like, this is such a blind spot that I'm not adhering to. And like, that was how I got overweight in the first place years ago, was like every night was just like empty calories, whiskey, like whatever it is. And like, and dude, I absolutely, I think there's a place for it for sure. But you know, like I'm going dry right now just until my 35th birthday, at the end of May, which is going to, you know, like, and it's really just kind of like a mental reset. And it's like, all right, well, like, hey, I'm still going to go out to the short north, and like, I'm going to do gallery hop, and I'm going to, you know, like, but I'm going to go to the happy hours? Like, how do I substitute these things, right? And then, like, I'm not going to lie, NA beer is clutch. NA wine is clutch. So, like, it really is. It's actually
alternatives there.
It's actually better than, like, even just, like, the soda water and lime trick or whatever. But, yeah, because it's, like, you know, we associate the taste of IPA with usually, like, just a good time. You're not really thinking about getting buzzed as much. And it's kind of a nice proxy.
I'm proud of you. I liked what you said there. You're just kind of raising awareness of the blind spots. I think a lot of people are just stuck on the autopilot for most of their lives. And it's when they start getting off that autopilot, that's when you make the decision. It's like, am I going to adjust my course, or am I just going to stay the same course, where it's not necessarily on autopilot anymore? You're just intentionally going the direction you don't want to go. So I love the idea of using self-audit for that. Dude, I think what you shared with us has been a fantastic tool with 4 really good steps. So I appreciate it. Any closing thoughts for anyone?
You know, keep the focus big picture. I don't think you need to set different goals every single month, even like every single year. I've been experimenting with like multiple years out now, and I think that, you know, you really just need to think about like, hey, who am I? And, you know, I've been in the wrong relationships. I've been depressed. I've been overweight. I've been sedentary. I've pulled myself out of that. And even like, I think the hardest times were on the walk through that. Maybe next episode we can get into it. But like, The hardest times were really on the walk through that, when I didn't I saw who I was becoming, and I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And the world didn't see it, but like, I saw myself that way and the world didn't. And I was so frustrated because like, I wasn't there yet either, and I couldn't prove it. So, you got to stick with that stuff for a long time, but what you really got to do is like, keep the big picture in that. So it's not like, hey, it's February. Oh shit, I need to come up with some new goals now. I guess I'll pick 18 workout or whatever it is. Right. So it's like, where in a year, where in 3 years, where in 5 years, like, you know, do you really want to be? And I think like, that's where I'm, you know, and, you know, even questioning the things that you are doing, and making sure like, I mean, they got to be in alignment with your values, right? Like, you got to make sure like, all right, I mean, and like, I distilled it down because it's kind of catchy, but like, health, wealth, and self, right? And I don't think there's any like better. I really don't think there's like any better things than that to focus on. You know, for the most part, maybe especially at this stage in life. But you know, it's like, all right, well, are you doing X, Y, and Z because they're like really like because they're really in line with your values, or you know, because they're not. I've had goals that I've incorporated and then just dropped because they're not serving me the way that I, you know, thought I was. One quick example was, you know, one year I wanted to set a standard of reading my age every year. So, you know, age 31, that's 31 books. And what I found was all I'm doing is trying to burn through books as fast as possible and like really just waiting for the next, like just trying to get to the next one. And like that kind of defeats the whole purpose of all of this, right?
Yes.
Especially if somebody's like kind of a slow reader and stuff versus like now like really kind of enjoying it. So there is a balance between quantity and quality. And, you know, I think there is like also a level of, I don't have this. There's like a dark side. I mean, like I do have this and there's definitely a dark side of like, all right, well, like you can't get so lost in it that it takes away kind of the enjoyment and appreciation of like how far you've come. And for instance, like if I had run a 4:01 marathon instead of a 3:59 or quicker or whatever, like if you miss your goal by like 1 minute, it's like, all right, well, I'd still, you know, I ran my first marathon this past May. I was 15 pounds heavier than I am now. I cut 15 pounds to get into that, cut 25 minutes off of it. And if I had cut, you know, 24 minutes off of it and came in at 4 hours and 1 second, I don't know if I would have been necessarily like happy with that. In like all things considered, like I think you don't want to lose the fact that like, hey, you cut 25 minutes off your marathon, you ran it with a stomach bug, you had these weightlifting goals that you hit all at the same time, like take some time to kind of enjoy it and like, you know, because otherwise there is that, and like there's a dark side of like chasing data as well, right? If you're like, all right, well, like I'm just chasing numbers at this point, I'm literally, you know, I'm doing the things, but it's not necessarily like, you know, it's not necessarily enjoyable or whatever either. And like it's never gonna always be enjoyable, but again, am I just doing stuff to check the box, or am I doing stuff because this is in alignment with how I want to be? Because if not, it's like, well, you know, pick a different goal, like, and figure out how to break it down into like something that's digestible. So. It's a little bit of a riff on that one, but yeah.
I love the riff.
I riff a lot.
I added another step to your process. I hope that's right. I know it's your process and all, but you know, we're just kind of building it together.
Yeah.
Remember the joy of remember the joy of progress, not just the outcome.
Yeah.
I think that's important there. You have to remember the joy you're having with it and realize like, oh, it's progress. Even if it's not the progress you want, it's still progress. The Kaizen approach, consistent incremental progress. Yeah, might not be at the outcome yet, but don't let yourself get completely down. Remember the joy of where you're going so far. Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I think that was a great riff. That was necessary. Yeah. You gave us an incomplete tool, and now you use your riff to kind of give us the last part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's. I mean, like, I think you don't come up with that unless you be like, because I've become so like, I've had stretches where it's like I've become so immersed in my goals that like. Yeah. And like it's you know, it's a huge challenge, like, you know, like it's a huge challenge for people like you're around too, because like, you know, you're like, you can easily date somebody who like just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you so miserable chasing this thing? It's like, just because I don't know what else to do. So I think like if you don't stop and look around, it can definitely be, it can definitely take away from that. And it's like, all right, well, like, is this going to be in line with what I'm valuing again too? And, you know, there's really no downside. It's really just you. You know, there's really nothing, I hate to say that there's really nothing at stake aside from like, you don't want that mentality to slip away, but otherwise like, hey, you come up short on your goals, like appreciate the fact that you still, maybe you know, your goal was to read 12 books for the year, you read 11, like you still read 11 books. You were going to run 2 marathons, you still ran a marathon, like you still whatever, like, I think that there's a lot to be said about that. And, you know, but there is absolutely like a dark side to the way that like, you know, I think people who do these things kind of get wired, and, you know, reminding myself constantly of that is something that has been a little bit of a still work in progress.
Hey, so long as you're raising awareness to it, at that point you decide rather to keep going down that dark path or keep embracing the light. And I think I know what you're going to do. Yeah. Spoiler alert, I think it's embrace the light. Yeah. I wasn't going to leave it mysterious at all. I was going to tell you what I thought.
Love it.
Heck yeah, man. Well, thank you for being on the podcast and everything.
It's good to be here, man.
Yeah, obviously you're coming back.
Yep, can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, brother. Thank you.
Part two.
Part two.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode. Chances are you're looking to embark on your own personal development journey. I'm not going to lie to you. True personal development is hard, and it's supposed to be hard. That's because you're not only changing who you are, but how you operate. The aim of this podcast is to give you a community of people that are striving to do the same. So like and subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, comment below on how you plan on using today's tool to find your own best path forward. We'll see you next time.